It seems the Smash community again is in another controversy, and this time it's really awful. So to start things off, if you don't know, Wadi was in a relationship with an individual called Juno, who is a content creator. Met Wadi because of some circumstances that they went through, that Juno unfortunately went through a tough breakup where they got cheated on, and essentially Wadi, quote unquote, came into the rescue and basically took them in. Juno at first didn't really like Wadi in that way. Wadi very much into Juno, and actually expressed that in Juno on multiple occasions, that they said in their twtlngr actually, you know, basically denied them. You know, like, I'm not really ready for a relationship, and then even going to as far as like, yeah, I'm not really attracted to you. But then Wadi randomly comes back. In Juno's words, Wadi randomly came back into my life. You know, Wadi would help them with, you know, as far as advice on how to grow on streams, all this stuff, and was basically there when not a lot of people were, which you might think, okay, that's really nice of him. Until you start digging deeper into the whole shtick of why he was nice to them. So the more you read into it, you're thinking, okay, Wadi was trying to be nice. Well, he wasn't trying to be nice just because of the goodness of his heart. It was because he wanted something. Wadi asks again if, you know, Juno wants to go out. They do end up going out, and then Wadi eventually asks Juno if they want to move in with him, and Juno eventually, you know, doesn't have a lot of stuff to go off of, you know, doesn't have like a job, friends, family that they can really stay with, agrees to stay with Wadi, and Wadi uses this to the fullest extent. Juno then talks about how if they made the right decision, they made the right decision doing this, basically talking about how Wadi enticed them by saying, yeah, you can come live with me, you don't got to worry about food, bill, like any of the bills, that Wadi would take care of Juno. And Juno, hearing that, basically came back, quitting my job, and deciding to live with him. And there was also a little paragraph which I think was a very big red flag. I mean, there was a ton of red flags throughout the entire thing. Even Juno acknowledges this throughout the entirety of the twtlngr, that there was just a lot of red flags about Wadi. And one of them was, and I quote, once I was back, I immediately ended up seeing a set of lashes somewhere set up when I walked through the door that Wadi didn't end up seeing. He got up out of bed, and I asked him whose they were in a joking tone, to which he claimed they must have been his ex-fiancée in one of the moving boxes. They looked recently used, and, you know, that person said they weren't hers. It didn't matter if he ended up cheating already, because I needed any sort of security at the time, so I never asked him much after that. So essentially, Juno's put into this position where, okay, Wadi might already be cheating, but they don't know. So it's kind of like, it's a tough situation that Juno was in. And then you fast forward a little bit, you know, they basically come out and say they're dating. Everybody's surprised, ridicules Wadi because of their age difference, all that stuff. And then it turns out that Juno was basically acting like a 90s, 40s housewife, which, if you don't know what that is, basically you cook, clean, look good, don't talk unless spoken to, like all that very, very stereotypical, awful housewife stuff. And at the time, again, Juno was okay doing this because they didn't really have anything else. You know, they didn't have a friend they could stay with. They didn't have family they could stay with. And basically, like, this was it. Like, they were just going to go along with this. Whether Juno genuinely wanted to do this or not is another thing. But the fact that they basically didn't really have a choice kind of makes this even worse. Then you're thinking, okay, this is very toxic. Yeah, it is, but it gets worse, because literally the paragraph after about the housewife, how Juno was acting like a 1940s, 40s housewife. It talks about how Juno takes medication, lowering their libido to basically nothing, and in their own words, making me almost asexual. I have no desire to have sex, and I told them I'm more into the cutesy love stuff and all that. Anytime I have sex, it's usually just to make someone happy. End quote. And I don't know if this set something off in Wadi's brain, but if you read a little bit into it, there was this is just, when I first read this, I was like, that's disgusting. That is just awful. That's just awful. Because what basically happened is that one night Juno, one night after Wadi's stream, Juno was very tired after like doing everything, like doing like cooking and stuff like that. So they're just very tired. And Wadi basically says, "Hey, you can't go to bed until you give me head." That's literally what it says. You cannot go to bed until you give me what I want, until you give me head. And Juno thought Wadi was kidding, but Wadi wasn't. And Juno reluctantly does this. And after that, you know, they wash their mouth. They essentially like look the other way and start to cry. And it's very awful when you're reading this that somebody went through all this. And they even talk about later on that later on Juno could tell Wadi was bothered by the fact that Juno didn't really want to have sex that much, because Wadi, I guess, was a very sexually active person, or likes to have sex a lot. And Juno, because of their medication, just couldn't. And instead of being understanding, Wadi was basically like, it bothers me. And it bothered him to the point where he kicked Juno out. And Juno basically had to pack all their shit and dip. And before that, went into the bathroom to cry and actually contemplating deleting themselves. Now, as hearing that is just, it really is heartbreaking to hear that somebody has to go through that to the point where they don't even want to, you know, be alive. It's awful. It really is. And it ends off with, you know, Juno getting out of there. Most disgusting part about this entire thing, as Juno is leaving or trying to leave and being disgusting, Wadi wants a fucking hug before Juno goes. I don't get it. Like this dude caused all this pain to somebody, and thinking that Juno will be back, he's like, "Oh, can I get a hug before you go?" And Juno's like, "Hell no." And it dips. Like, wow, like what? Like, are you good, my guy? You might think it can't get any worse for Wadi, because like this is already as bad as it looks. Oh no, it can, because another statement came out basically saying that Wadi is a groomer, that Wadi is this predator, and it makes him look even worse. So Squirt came out with a statement titled "Speaking Out," and Squirt, if you don't know, is a longtime friend of Wadi's, who's also in the Pokemon scene and was a part of the Smash scene, who used to be a player. And Squirt basically goes on and talks about his relationship with Wadi and how they first met when Squirt was around 15 to 16 when he met Wadi, and Wadi was about 20 to 21 at the time. So basically, you know, Squirt was a minor, Wadi was a pretty full-grown adult. And basically what transpired was that Wadi wanted Squirt to be his boyfriend, his like boy toy. What Squirt thought was that they were going to be in a relationship, but what it seemed was Wadi just wanted something else out of it. And what that something else was, you can use your imagination. He basically wanted sex, and sadly that's what Wadi got. And essentially, after he got what he wanted, when they were in a so-called relationship, Wadi broke off from Squirt and broke up with him. Then later got with his ex-fiance. So it's a very, very fucked up situation, very messed up situation. And, you know, I applaud Squirt for coming out and talking about it, because, you know, a lot of people wouldn't. And this basically testifies to how Wadi's character is, and how he moves, and how he presents himself, and how he can be very manipulative at times. And you're probably thinking to yourself, what is Wadi's response to all this? Well, I don't think you can find the twtlngr anymore, because he deactivated his account. He just straight up deactivated after Squirt's response. But I did see the response of Wadi for a little bit, and basically all it was, I'm just gonna be honest, it was basically him just rebuttaling this, and basically basically saying, oh yeah, what Juno said didn't have. This is his response before Squirt, basically responding to Juno's, and basically like, oh, she was wrong. Basically his responses to Juno's, or basically his response on Twitter was that Juno's wrong, you know, that's not what happened, what Juno said was disgusting and it hurt, and you know, all this stuff. Then Squirt's point of view came out, and he just said, deuces, I'm out, I'm a dip. And we really haven't heard from him since, and he's still deactivated his account if you actually look it up right now. The whole scene is kind of like taken aback because it's just, you know, it kind of just like, whoa, this you know, just came out of like, this just came out like randomly, you know. It's like, I don't even know what to really say about this whole thing. It's insane to think that one person could be very, again, to lack of better terms, toxic and just very manipulative and just downright just not a good person. It's insane to think that he could use one person, his own needs, who was a minor, mind you, and then also use somebody else who was of age but still not right, that he used them for his own needs again, and not really thinking about what they might think or their feeling, not taking into account all those things. And the fact that he didn't take any accountability and towards any of this, basically rebuttaling what Juno says, instead of taking accountability and being like, hey, you know, I messed up, I'm going to work on myself and I'm going to take a hiatus. Basically, he just said, no, Juno, you're wrong, this shit hurt, this is not right. And then Squirt comes out and be like, no, dude, you're in the wrong, you used me just like you used a lot of other people. And he basically just said, all right, I'm a head out. And we haven't heard from him. And I don't know if we'll hear from him, but he deactivated it. So he didn't delete it. You can still look it up. It'll just say something went wrong, try again, or something on the lines of that. And you can go and check that out for yourself. You can also check out Squirk's POV, his twtlngr, Juno's twtlngr. Those will both be in the description below. I do encourage you, if you want to read on it further, to check those out, because they go into very lengthy detail. Disclaimer that they do contain some pretty graphic and, you know, sexual content, talking about deleting oneself in Juno's. So, you know, if that's something that you don't like or don't want to, you're very weary of, and, you know, just be warned. But the whole scene is just a mess. It's awful. It's disgusting. I don't even know what to say about it, because the whole thing is just, on one hand, you feel awful for, you know, Juno. On the other hand, you're like, what the hell are you doing, Wadi? Like, why are you being, again, for a lack of a better terms, an asshole to two people and basically using them for your own benefit? And then after Squirk's POV comes out, you basically just dip. Now, whether Wadi comes back and makes a statement or not about, you know, and it's not like the statement came out like very far after. Juno's statement came out the 29th. Well, Squirk's came out literally the day after. And I genuinely hope that Wadi gets the help he deserves. I hope he does, because what he did to both these people is unspeakable and just, in my mind, unforgivable to both of them.